They found a brass bullet near the Red Fork River in the autumn of 1891. Just one, polished clean with initials carved deep into the casing, J.P. But the story behind it began 12 years before that night, when a man rode into Sorrow Creek wearing a star he no longer believed in. The wind carried dust like memory across the plains of New Mexico Territory in the summer of 1879. Jeremiah Pike rode into town just before sunset, his shadow stretching long and thin across the main street like a dark confession. Nobody asked his business. In Sorrow Creek, strangers came in two kinds, those running toward something and those running away. Pike looked like both. He tied his horse outside the Silver Bell Saloon, spurs chiming soft against the warped wooden steps. Inside, lamplight cut through cigar smoke. A piano played somewhere in the corner, slow, mournful, like a hymn sung backwards. The bartender, a man named Calhoun with eyes that had seen too much, wiped down the counter without looking up. "Whiskey," Pike said. Calhoun poured. "You got a name, stranger?" "Everyone's got a name. Most men use 'em." Pike lifted the glass, studied the amber light through it. "Jeremiah Pike. Used to wear a badge in Kansas." "Used to?" Pike drank. Didn't answer. Outside, thunder rolled across the mesa like distant cannon fire. The storm was coming. 3 days passed before anyone learned why Pike had come. He took a room above the general store, paid in silver, kept to himself. Mornings he'd sit on the porch and watch the street like a man waiting for ghosts. Evenings he'd ride out toward the foothills and disappear until moonrise. It was Abigail Crane who finally spoke to him. She ran the boarding house at the edge of town, a woman in her 30s with dark hair pinned tight and eyes that looked like they'd once held laughter. Now they just held caution. "You looking for someone, Marshal Pike?" she asked one evening as he passed. He stopped. "I'm no marshal anymore. Badge don't make the man, heart does." She stepped off her porch, arms crossed against the cooling air. "But if you're looking for Elias Crane, you should know. He's already dead." Pike's jaw tightened. "I heard." "Then why are you here?" He looked past her, toward the purple mountains dissolving into dusk. "Because I'm the one who killed him." The wind pulled at her skirt. Somewhere a shutter banged against a wall. "I know," she said quietly. They sat on her porch that night while the storm broke overhead. Rain hammered the tin roof like accusations. Lightning split the sky open, and for brief moments the world turned white as bone. Pike rolled a cigarette with steady hands. "Kansas City, February of '77. I was chasing a gang that had robbed the Atchison Bank. Your husband rode with them." Abigail stared at her hands. "He wasn't my husband then. He was just Elias, a boy who'd made bad choices with worse men. He drew on me outside a rail yard. I gave him a chance to surrender." Pike lit the cigarette, exhaled smoke that the wind tore away. "He didn't take it." "So you killed him?" "So I killed him." The rain filled the silence between them, heavy, relentless, like grief. "Then why come here?" she finally asked. "Why now?" Pike reached into his coat and pulled out a photograph, creased and faded. It showed a young man and woman standing in front of a church. The man wore a nervous smile. The woman looked radiant. "Found this in his pocket after. Took me 2 years to learn who you were, where you'd gone." He set it on the railing between us. "I came to tell you he said your name, at the end.
Just once. But he said it. Abigail's hand trembled as she picked up the photograph. A tear caught lamplight. He wrote me letters after he ran. Said he wanted to come home clean. Said he'd made enough money for a fresh start. She looked at Pike, eyes fierce through the grief. He was going to surrender after one more job. The words hit Pike like a bullet. I didn't know, he said, the cigarette burned forgotten between his fingers. No, you couldn't have. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But I needed you to know he wasn't just an outlaw. He was a man trying to find his way back. Pike crushed the cigarette under his boot. I quit the marshals after that. Couldn't wear the star anymore. Not after... He stopped. Started again. I've carried him with me every day since. Then maybe it's time to put him down, Marshal. I told you, I'm not... You ever loved someone so much it burned holes in your soul? Pike looked at her. Really looked. Saw the strength it took to stand there with the man who'd made her a widow. Once. A long time ago. Love don't burn, Mr. Pike. She stood, smoothed her dress. It just don't die easy. She went inside, leaving him alone with the storm and his ghosts.
The next morning dawned clean and brutal. Pike was saddling his horse when the rider came, a young deputy from Silver City, breathless and dust-covered. You Jeremiah Pike? Depends who's asking. Clayton Hayes is asking. Says he's been looking for you for 3 years. The name landed like an iron weight. Pike's hand stilled on the saddle. Clayton Hayes, brother to Samuel Hayes, the gang leader Pike had tracked to Kansas City, the man who'd gotten away while Pike shot down a scared kid named Elias Crane. He's in Sorrow Creek? Pike asked. Rode in last night with 4 men. Says he killed your brother. Says he's going to return the favor. Sunrise tomorrow, Main Street. Pike looked toward town. Smoke rose from morning cook fires, thin and fragile against the vast sky. I'll be there. The deputy hesitated. Mr. Pike, Hayes is fast, real fast, and he don't fight fair. Nobody does, son. That's why they call it a fight. Pike spent the day preparing. He cleaned his revolver with hands that knew the ritual by heart, checked each chamber, loaded 5 bullets, left the 6th chamber empty, the one under the hammer. Safe carry, they called it, the habit of a man who'd survived by being careful. But this time, he pulled 1 bullet back out, held it to the fading light. Then, using the tip of his knife, he carved 2 letters into the brass casing, J.P. Abigail found him at sunset, sitting in the shadow of the church. You don't have to do this, she said. Yeah, I do. He'll kill you. Maybe. Pike studied the bullet in his palm. But if I run, I'll keep running, and I'm tired, Abigail, tired of carrying the dead. She sat beside him on the steps. The sky bled red and gold, and somewhere a mourning dove called out its lonely song. Elias used to say the West forgives nothing, that every choice echoes, she said softly. He was right, but maybe if the echo's loud enough, it drowns out the silence. She didn't argue, just sat with him as the light died and the stars emerged like holes punched in black canvas. If you don't come back, I'll make sure people know you were more than the shot you fired. That's more than I deserve. Maybe, but Elias would have wanted it. She stood, touched his shoulder briefly. Good night, Marshal Pike. She walked away, and Pike sat alone with the coming dark.
Dawn came cold and blue. Pike stood in the middle of Main Street, the dust still cool beneath his boots. The town held its breath behind shuttered windows. Even the wind had gone quiet, as if the whole world was waiting. Clayton Hayes stepped out of the Silver Bell Saloon. He was younger than Pike expected, maybe 30, with his brother's sharp eyes and his father's hard jaw. He wore 2 guns, tied low. "You know why I'm here?" Hayes called out. "I know. You killed Samuel, shot him down like a dog in Kansas City." "I shot him because he was robbing innocent people, because he chose the gun over surrender." Pike's voice carried clear in the stillness. "Same as the boy who rode with him, Elias Crane." Hayes spat. "That boy was nothing. My brother was a lion." "Your brother was a coward who hid behind kids with more courage than sense." The words hit their mark. Hayes's face twisted. "Draw," he snarled. Time stretched. Pike saw it all. The sun breaking over the eastern ridge. The church bell tower catching light. Abigail watching from the boarding house porch with one hand over her heart. He thought of Elias Crane saying his wife's name with his last breath. He thought of every choice that had led him here. Then Hayes went for his guns. Pike drew. The shots came like thunder. Boom, boom, boom. 3 from Hayes, 2 from Pike. So close together they sounded like one long roar. Pike felt fire tear through his side, felt his knees buckle. But Hayes went down first, clutching his chest, surprise frozen on his face. Pike stood swaying, blood spreading dark across his shirt. He looked at his revolver, opened the cylinder. Empty. All 5 chambers spent. Except, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the 6th bullet, the one with his initials carved deep. For a long moment, he just held it. His last bullet, his last choice. Then he let it fall. It hit the dust with a soft metallic sound and rolled toward Hayes's body, catching the morning sun like a promise kept. Pike's legs gave out. He sank down slow back against the hitching post. Abigail was running toward him, the doctor too, voices rising. But Pike was looking at the sky. Impossibly blue, impossibly wide. He said, "I'm sorry, Elias. I'm so damn sorry." The world tilted, faded, and for the first time in 3 years, Jeremiah Pike felt light. They found the bullet a week after Pike died. The doc had patched him up, but infection took him slow. 3 days of fever and quiet delirium. Abigail sitting beside him the whole time, holding his hand while he called out names of the dead. On the last night, he opened his eyes clear and said, "Tell them I tried to be better than I was." "I will," she promised. He smiled. "You're lying, but thank you." Then he was gone. They buried him on the hill beside Elias Crane. Abigail's idea. Said maybe they could forgive each other in the dirt if they couldn't in life. The bullet, the one Pike had carved and dropped, somebody must have taken it as a keepsake. Months later, it turned up near the Red Fork River, half buried in silt after the autumn floods. A prospector found it, sold it to a collector in Santa Fe. But the folks in Sorrow Creek knew. They remembered. They said Jeremiah Pike had been a man who carried his dead until the weight broke him. Said he'd come to town seeking forgiveness he didn't believe he deserved. Said in the end, he had given his life to prove that even killers could be more than their worst moment. The preacher said he died atoning. The bartender said he died fighting. Abigail Crane said he died free. Maybe they were all right. The wind still moves through Sorrow Creek, carrying dust and secrets. The church bell rings on Sundays. The Silver Bell Saloon still pours whiskey for strangers. And sometimes, when the light hits right at dawn, folks say you can see two shadows riding together across the mesa, one wearing a star, one wearing chains, both heading home at last. They say the West keeps its secrets, every scar, every promise, every whispered trail. Some rode for vengeance, others for love, but a few just to find peace beneath the dying sun. Jeremiah Pike found his peace in the dust of Main Street with a bullet he chose not to fire. Would you have done the same? Subscribe for more tales from whispering trails under the Wild West limits.